Hello and welcome to episode 15th of the Music Crypt with Dan Montgomery. Today, Dan and I are going to be talking about the 58th anniversary of the classic TV show, The Munsters. Now, Dan, I know you're big of a horror freak, but how big of a Munsters fan are you?
Huge Munsters fan.
Yeah, I am too, and I don't know, I like the Addams Family too, but I like the Munsters a little better. And I think it's because, aside from the horror, they got kind of like a comedy angle to what they do, and so it's not really so scary, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, the other thing that people may not even realize is like the Munsters is based on, of course, those famous kind of horror characters like Herman Munster's obviously kind of supposed to be based on Frankenstein, and his father-in-law is Count Dracula, so it's kind of got a little bit of a funny backstory there,
I was checking out some information that there was a guy who was trying to make I wish I had his name. He was trying to pitch an idea for a Saturday morning cartoon that was monsters living together in suburbia.
Yeah.
And it didn't go over. They just kind of put it on the back plate and didn't do anything with it. And then like 2 years later, after they'd kind of forgotten about it, they decided to do this.
Yeah, and the Munsters, just so people have a time frame when we're talking, premiered on September 24th, 1964, 58 years ago, and the show ended on May 12th, 1966. So it only lasted for 2 seasons and a total of 70 shows, but amazingly, the show wasn't that popular when they were on air. It became more popular in syndication.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was kind of cool. I was checking out like their pilot. It was like an 18-minute thing, but it was like in color.
Yeah, and of course,
and then when they went to go to distribute it, of course they went into black and white because I guess it was like $10,000 extra to put it in color.
I was reading that.
Crazy.
I was reading that, and what's funny is I think it works better in black and white anyways. I mean, it's got that more of that horror classic horror film look, I mean, even like you watch any of those classic horrors like the Universal movies like Dracula and Frankenstein, they've all got that black and white look, and I think that's a lot of horror fans dig that, and I know for whatever reason it makes it look more authentic to me.
Yeah, it's more monstery. Like it should be.
I remember when they tried to do a remake of the Munsters like in the 80s, early 90s, and they colorized it, and of course new actors, up-and-coming actors never even heard of it, and maybe it's just because I'm used to what I'm used to, the classic, but it didn't work for me in color, and because I'm so used to Fred Gwynne as my Herman Munster, if you know what I mean, it just didn't work. I mean, it looked like I don't know, the Frankenstein, the guy who played Herman Munster, it just did not look like the original Herman Munster to me. It was kind of more of a robotic.
It looked a little weird, right? He had a big forehead. Like, it just didn't look right.
Like, what I am waiting for is Rob Zombie's movie. I mean, everything I've seen coming out, the clips of that, I mean, I think that looks as authentic as the original thing as you possibly can get. And
other than having a mustache on Grandpa.
Yeah.
Maybe shave that off, but I think it's going to be an awesome show.
Yeah, and I think that's the first time since the original TV series that they've really gotten it right. And oddly enough, I'm sure they had 2 movies too. They had like Munster Go Home, and I forget what the other one was, but that was kind of colorized, but it seemed to work, I think, too, because it was the original actors.
Right.
Yeah.
They were talking about like the original actors, like when they did the pilot, and I think up to like the 13th episode.
Yeah.
They had what was her name, Beverly Owen playing Marilyn.
Yeah. And
then she left, and then what was her name? I can't remember.
Pat Priest.
Yeah. And then I guess she played Marilyn all the way till they got ready to shoot the color movie.
Yeah. And
I guess they were still doing the series.
Yeah.
And they told her that she wasn't going to be in the movie.
Well, I was reading a little backstory on this, and this is kind of a funny story. That I guess Beverly Owen, who played the part originally, she when at the time she got the part, she was engaged to be married, and I think she lived in Los Angeles where the series was shot, and her fiance lived in New York. and she just missed him so horribly that she would show up to the set every day like just crying in tears and wanted out of her contract. But other actors said, just let her out of her contract. And I mean, she missed her boyfriend that much. I mean, apparently she never appeared on screen after that ever again. Yeah.
Let's see, what else did I read about this thing? The Monster Mobile that
Yeah.
the big long coach.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this, but finish this because this is something I wrote down too.
3 Model Ts welded together.
Wow. Yeah, and apparently they were designed by George Barris, who also did the Batmobile.
Yeah, so that would cost him about $20,000.
Yeah.
Back then to do that one.
And I know. I'd be willing to bet those are in some museum somewhere.
I think Butch Patrick owns them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And then of course.
Because he hangs out. He goes down to Monster Tattoo.
Oh, okay.
Which is Riggs. Mike Riggs.
Yeah. And
And you'll see those cars parked out there every once in a while.
And the
Pictures of the studio every once in a while. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I guess it's easy for me to say this, but a lot of the actors that appeared on the Munsters, they became typecasted. After the series went off, Fred Gwynne was horribly typecasted, and I mean he did he did appear like in Pet Sematary and a couple other things, but
My cousin Vinny, he was awesome in that.
yeah, his career kind of it was never the same because everybody when they see Fred Gwynne they would think of him as Herman Munster, and that's a kind of a double-edged thing because to me, I mean, you have a guy like Adam West as far as with Batman, and he kind of became typecast, but I liked the way he kind of embraced it. He said, well, okay, this is what I'm going to become known for. He started showing up at all the Batman conventions and all that, and he was making those appearances right up to the very end. And the interesting thing too about Fred Gwynne is, I mean, besides wearing the makeup, because of how big he was supposed to be with the Frankenstein monster and that, I mean, he wore all these extra weights, and the costume weighed so much that it actually caused him to have severe back pain, like for the rest of his life.
Yeah, they were talking about how much weight he lost, like in the 2 years he was doing that show.
Yeah, and so the Munsters again is an American television sitcom that centers around a family of monsters, and Herman Munster, who is Frankenstein, he's the head of the family. Herman's wife is Lily, the daughter of a legendary Count Dracula. Eddie is their young monster son, and their niece Marilyn, who to anyone else's eyes is drop dead gorgeous, but she to the Munsters is the ugly duckling of the family. Yeah, the freak show. I mean, that's another thing. If you remember any of those episodes where she'd have her.
Well, I don't know how the guy looks past her look.
Yeah, they're like, oh, poor Marilyn, and they're like, it's like, get a clue. No, the boyfriend saw you guys and took off running.
Yeah, it was too funny.
And an interesting fact is that the Munsters received higher Nielsen ratings than the Addams Family. So apparently, like we talked about the Addams Family, and I guess they were on for the same length of time, like during the same years. And like I said, the Munsters always received a little higher ratings. I think because the Addams Family is kind of like a Monsters type family too, but I think the humor is a little more dry. Whereas with the Munsters,
I think the Munsters brought the kids in, and then the kids came in, or the parents came in after the kids.
Yeah. And then
Definitely cool show.
then you had the crazy grandpa who was always doing his crazy wacky experiments. In fact, I remember one episode where I forget what the potion was they were making, but Herman turned into like a woman,
There was another one where they did some experiment and changed him back into his regular person.
Oh yeah, and then he was the ugly duckling of the family, and they're like,
She wouldn't let him kiss him, or kiss him.
yeah.
It was funny. Then something that I found out, which is kind of strange, but kind of a cool fact. So you're looking at all the monsters, right?
Yeah.
So how did Eddie become a werewolf?
I'm not sure.
So I was checking this out because I was curious.
Yeah.
So Grandpa's little brother,
Oh, okay.
I think his name is Lester.
Yeah, Uncle Lester. Oh, okay, I remember.
But he's actually a werewolf.
Yeah. Okay.
So I guess in the genealogy, genes being passed down through the lines, maybe
Yeah, and another thing that, like some of these other classic TV shows, you find out years later, like, for example, on Gilligan's Island, you notice, okay, there's the fact that they're shipwrecked, but they're supposed to have been on, going on this 3-hour tour. You think they took some other clothes with them, and then you find out, well, we just have them wear the same clothes because, it's cheaper than just having one outfit for everybody. But then, like same thing with the Munsters. You think, okay, don't these people? I realize they're Munsters, but don't they ever change their clothes? Don't they? When Eddie goes to school, don't people think he's always wearing the same dirty clothes? Yeah. And see, that's what makes a show like this so fun, because when you rather go into the movies or the movie theater, you're watching it on at home. This is what you call escapism. I mean, we know there's not really creatures like this out there, but it's fun to think, what if, or wouldn't that be crazy? And then even the crazy looking Munster house, I don't know if you ever went to Universal Studios. They still have that on the back lot. I mean, years later, they used it like on the set of Desperate Housewives. And a lot of these old Hollywood sets, they reuse them for other things in the future. It's amazing. Yeah.
Right? And I'm leaning out the side because it was the open side, tram thing. And we're going by the Munster house, and I'm taking pictures. I got about 4 pictures of it. And then I go back home and I get them developed. And this was back in 35mm film time.
Okay. Yeah.
And 3 of the pictures were fine. And one of the pictures, there was something standing in the upstairs window.
Wow.
But it wasn't there in the other 3 pictures. And I thought, there's probably something wrong with the film.
Yeah.
Right? Or something like that. But I never went. That was like my last time through there, so I never went back to try it again. But I've kind of heard that some of those old sets could have some things going on because of just like the history behind them.
And then, I think Fred Gwynne, I think also before the Munsters, he used to be in another previous TV show called Car 54.
Yeah, so was Grandpa. He was in that same show.
Oh, okay, so that's how they probably first found. And Al Lewis, I know, very much like we talked about some of these other characters, he became typecasted, but he lived to be like 88 or 90 years old, and he was kind of making all these appearances of Grandpa, and I think he even took a stab at running for the Senate.
Yeah, I saw something about that. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, and so did you see either one of the movies they made, like Munster Go Home, and I forget what the other one was?
I saw the Munster Go Home one.
Yeah.
And, it was okay, but, it was the color thing.
Yeah,
it just didn't belong in color.
Now, what I was able to find on Amazon a couple years ago is they have like both movies you can get on DVD. I got it like on a Blu-ray collection, and it's pretty fun, like to have something like that for like Halloween. I'm gonna tune into that, and you kind of get both movies. And what's cool about it is, while they have countless reruns of the Munsters that you can probably find, all across the globe on cable TV and stuff, but they don't play either of those movies too much. I do not know why. Yeah.
I think the studios kind of looked at those as maybe like
collector's items.
Like failures.
Yeah, maybe.
And so maybe they just kind of hide them off to the back and still make money off the series and syndication or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it would be fun, I think, if they had like a thing where they play like old movies like that on the big screen. I think that would be fun to see.
Yeah, no doubt. That would be cool.
And it's just amazing too when you look at all the way they were made up. I mean, not only did they look the part, but it's like, wow, they, I mean, even Universal back in the day when they did all those classic horror films, I mean, they got the makeup so right. I mean, I could not believe when I found out Boris Karloff, who was in all those great Universal movies. Until recently, I had no idea that he did the original voice of the Grinch.
Yeah, crazy, huh?
Yeah. I'm like, wow, a guy that just shows you somebody's talent that can do all those great horror flicks, and then he's also the original Grinch.
Right.
Yeah.
Christmas special.
Yeah. and he's the one that started it all. And I think he even sang the voice of Mr. Grinch. And that's the other thing. I'm kind of surprised. Like, the other thing with Universal, they have the Universal Halloween night. I'm kind of surprised they don't pull out like the Munsters in that for their classic Halloween thing. Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
And then, it's kind of funny. I was trying to figure out, well, why did the Munsters get canceled? Right?
Yeah.
70 episodes.
Yeah.
It seems like we're going up against one of our other favorite subjects.
Batman. That's what thanks for reminding me. I wrote that down.
Yeah. And they're like, Batman was on 2 nights a week.
Well, the other thing I read is, I think,
it was just like, it just outdated Munsters like right away.
And the other thing I read was that they switched the night. I don't know what night it was originally on, but they switched it to the same night as Batman. And the minute they did that, the ratings went down. But again, see, that's how much, back then I guess that was kind of giving it more of a chance. Okay, well, we tried with 2 seasons and the ratings are going down. Something like Happy Days, for example, was on the air, 10, 11 years. That's probably one of the longest running, sitcoms. But, I guess at the time of Munsters, they weren't really into trying to, work the show. Okay, well, the rating's going down. We're just going to dump it. Yeah. And it's funny, like Batman that beat a show like the Munsters, and it caused that to go off. If you look at the classic Batman show, it looks so campy. But I'll be honest with you. When I think of Batman, Dan, even though that's like, I wasn't born until 71, so that's still a little before my time. When I was a kid, they were playing reruns of that, so that's my Batman. When I think of Batman, as campy as that is to look at, that's my Batman. That's what I think of. That's why when I saw The Dark Knight for the first time, I thought, wow, Batman is so mean, and it's so funny because depending on, like that's why I think Fred Gwynne, when I think of Herman Munster, he'll always be Herman Munster to me. Even in the new Rob Zombie movie, when I see it, I'm probably going to go see it and love it. But I'm like, this guy, he's got to be at least as good as Fred Gwynne, And so I just don't know. But yeah, that's funny you brought up the Batman thing because they had the Batmobile, and then the Munsters, they had the Munster coach and the Dracula. Yeah, that's amazing. And do you know how much money that guy got paid for coming up with those designs?
Yeah, well, at least one of them he made $20,000 on.
Yeah,
and that was the first, like the Munster Mobile, right?
Yeah.
And then they said they were going to make something even more outrageous, and then they made Dracula. But I didn't hear how much that one cost.
Yeah, and from what I understand, Rob Zombie, when he did his music video for that song Dracula or whatever it was, it was based all on the Munsters. His love for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even the video, it looks like he's riding on the coach.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know if you got a chance to see the new Batman movie that's out. My only real complaint with it is he's got like a cool looking bat motorcycle, but I'm like, and they show the Batmobile in a few scenes. But I'm like, man, they should have had that in more of the scenes.
Right.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's good. If you're a Batman fan, I think you'll like it because it's based on one of the old comic books, which is Year One, and it kind of shows how he became the Batman. And what's interesting in this one, I think, if you like the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix, where he's a real psycho, they make the Riddler into a real psycho, but it's kind of a different character. If your idea of the Riddler was like, on the original Batman series or what Jim Carrey did, this is quite different from that. Yeah. So what have you been up to, Dan, lately? Have you been seeing any movies?
No, I haven't really had time. I've just been working and doing the radio show, and that's pretty much all I've been doing.
Yeah, and in fact, you have another show tonight, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you keep busy too, and a lot of these great movies. Like I just did a thing on The Godfather. Turning 50 years old. That's why when I got the idea to do a show today on the Munsters, I could not believe it premiered in 1964, and like you said, it's only 2 seasons, but that's the amazing thing for a show. It's only 2 seasons to have that kind of impact. Not just on us, but so many people around the world. I mean, people are still watching that today. And so I know, and I don't know that there'll ever be anything like that again, because I think when we think of classic kind of horror on TV, as far as stuff like this, probably it's either the Munsters or the Addams Family. And the funny thing is, I know a lot of people, it's kind of like Star Trek versus Star Wars fans. It's like, no, I like the Addams Family. No, the Munsters are better. Where I kind of like both, but like I said again, if I had to pick like my favorite, I'd have to go with the Munsters, just because it's a little more funnier to me. The like when you laugh, it's a little more obvious. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the Addams Family was more adult.
Yeah.
Than it was to the kids, obviously.
Yeah, and I think that's why I think a lot more like kids and just everybody loved the Munsters, because you could not help but. I mean, one of the things I love about the Munsters, I think Herman Munster was probably my favorite character on there, and it's just because he's such a sweet, dumb simpleton. I used to love the scenes where, he'd be with Grandpa, or just like a little kid, he'd jump up and down when he didn't get his way. He'd start like crying, I want to, and I'm like, yeah, okay. and sometimes he acts more like a kid than the rest of them, and it's funny too, because they're all supposed to be like 500 years old or whatever, because they're monsters and they never die and they live forever. And then like Lily, what's funny about her is, in real life, I guess Yvonne DiCarlo, she was in a lot of movies before the Munsters, and she too got typecasted and kind of ruined her career, so she didn't do too much after that. But the point is, like when you watch the Munsters, that's we're looking thinking, she's ugly, and she's supposed to be ugly because she's a monster, but then Herman and her are getting romantic together like married couples do. Oh, Lily, you're the most beautiful woman, and you just can't help but laugh, and I think that's what made a show like the Munsters work, because there really wasn't anything like that at the time other than the Addams Family, and even then the shows were so different.
Right.
Yeah.
What's funny too is I think it was either one of the directors or writers or producers or something like that was also one of the guys who helped make Leave It to Beaver.
Oh, actually, yeah, the producers behind it, that's what it said, that they.
So I think that had something to do with that, the kind of vibe of the show, because it's almost like Leave It to Beaver with monsters.
Yeah, it's kind of like you think.
Different stories,
yeah.
But kind of the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and then Eddie kind of, I don't know how to say this, but he kind of was like a Leave It to Beaver, like a Beaver type. I mean, always getting in trouble, and he's just such a sweet little monster. You can't help but love him. And here's another interesting fact I came across. The uncredited voice of the Raven was supplied by none other than Mel Blanc, who did many voices. One of the most famous voices he was known for was like Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. So the little, and then they had the little weird little pets too, because they're a Munster family. Like the dog Spot was like a dragon that came out from under the stairs and blew smoke, but we never really saw. But yeah, it was just a fun little show, and I think it was it's worth a mention, because I mean, like again, there are other sitcoms that I just love, like Happy Days, Three's Company, and back in the 70s and 80s, shows like that would run for more than 2 seasons, and by that time, they started colorizing everything. So it's kind of fun to go back and say, oh well, back in the day they did do it in black and white, and that's why when you watch a show like the Munsters, you can tell it's not from the 80s,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of interested to see how Rob Zombie's movie comes out. I mean, it looks like he's on the right track, and I think part of a reason for that is because it's not just some Hollywood type that, okay, we're just going to do a reboot of this. He's a real fan himself, so I think he'll be able to. He's done enough movies at this point. I think he'll be able to do it the right way.
Right.
So, is there anything else that you?
All I gotta do is shave that mustache off of Grandpa.
Yeah. And I think, as far as Rob Zombie's version of the movie, I think he's I think he's cast his wife in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
I don't know if
she's Lily.
Oh, that's what I thought. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you know, what did you think of his movies he did, the remake of Halloween?
I thought those were some cool movies.
Yeah. I mean, I thought, you know, not just because Rob Zombie did it, but I think he did a great job of kind of staying as authentic as he could, and yet kind of making it his own. So it's not a total ripoff, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what else have you been up to, Dan? Seen any good movies lately?
I think the last movie I saw was the new Spider-Man one.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. That's a good one. And what I loved about that is you kind of get everybody that ever played the role of Spider-Man showing up in the film, and I love like even the return of Doc Ock and all the villains, and they did it in a way where, I mean, I realize we're in the Marvel universe and we're talking about make-believe again, but they did it in a way where, okay, I could kind of see that maybe happening in a movie like this, and the way they end the movie, it kind of sets it up for the new Doctor Strange movie coming out this week. Are you going to go see that, or are you at all a fan of Doctor Strange?
I'm probably going to check that out.
Yeah. In fact, I think like Marvel, I don't know, they just keep getting better and better. Yeah. So Dan.
Once they got away from the however many year long Avenger story that was.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've been listening to any new music. I'll tell you the latest thing I got that I really have been loving is, believe it or not, the new Ted Nugent CD, and I think it's one of the best things he's done in a long time. I'm pretty much a fan of everything he's done, but this is kind of like all American rock, and I don't know how, but he does a cool version too of the Star Spangled Banner that kind of ends the album. But it's something, if you like Ted Nugent, I think you'll dig it. Oh wow, that is cool. Yeah, as far as the Ted Nugent, I know you can go online. They got it on YouTube. The whole thing. It's called Detroit Muscle, but it's pretty cool. I think a lot of people are going to dig what he's doing. Well, Dan Montgomery, I know you got another show to get ready for, so I won't take too much of your time up. But we'll wrap it up for today, and then Dan and I were discussing when we get together maybe in 2 weeks and do this again, which will be, if you can believe it or not, Dan, we're coming up on episode 16 next time. We're going to be talking about some of our, we're going to make a list, I think, Dan, of, you make a list and I'll make a list of our top 10, like best of or greatest hits collection, and there's so many I think we can talk about.
Excellent.
Okay, you take care, my friend, and I'll be in touch.
Thanks, Jason.
Bye-bye.
Chaotic Riffs Magazine.